it's Dan. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a book review of Advance and Retreat by J.B. Hood, Lieutenant General, the Confederate States of America. Now, if you don't know who John Bell was, he was Confederate General during the American Civil War. He was a graduate of West Point, and at the outbreak of the war he offered his services to Texas, hence Fort Hood, which is currently in Texas, one of our large military bases here. So he was the youngest general for the Confederacy. He was promoted at 33, and he was a tough old bag. He lost an arm and a leg, and by the end of the war, which is really what this book deals with, is the Army of the Tennessee and the closing years of the war. They literally had to tie him to his horse so he could move around because he was so freaking injured. So he was a tough old bird. Now, he died in 1879. After the war, he became a cotton broker in New Orleans, but New Orleans suffered a rash of yellow fever epidemics, and he died along with his wife and his eldest daughter, leaving 10 orphaned, destitute children behind. This is an important context for if you want to go out and read his memoir of the Civil War. His Hood was accused of being rash and of needlessly killing his soldiers. And this accusation primarily came from the Confederate General Joseph Johnston, who at one point was Hood's commander just before the Battle of Atlanta. Now, so what Hood was doing was he was taking this insult personally, and in his memoir he wrote a defensive treatise which basically said why General Johnston sucks and why I don't. So when you read this, you'll see that that's the theme of this memoir. Now, my understanding is that historians tend to think that Hood had a lot of his facts in this memoir incorrect, but they differ a little bit on their opinions about whether Hood was an effective or not an effective general. Hood was much admired in his time for his aggressiveness and his toughness. I mean, honestly, you get your arm blown off, your leg blown off, you strap it to your horse. People are going to like that. Troops are going to like that. They think, wow, type of thing. And he apparently came to the defense of Jackson. You remember Stonewall Jackson? He came up on his flank and rushed into the fray. So he was very, very aggressive. But it was just that same aggressiveness which Johnston was criticizing him for. And I think, from the future, not in the Civil War period myself, but reading this book, it looks to me like this might be a case of the Peter Principle, which is a management principle. If you're familiar with it, it basically says that you promote somebody up the ladder. Here's the invisible ladder of success. You promote somebody up that ladder based upon what they did at the lower level. And eventually that person's going to get to a level where they are not as effective. And that's the point, according to the Peter Principle, that you probably ought to fire that person. It's a pretty heartless management principle, but I think that in this case it's a good example of Peter Principle, where Hood was really an effective corps commander, but when he became a general, he just couldn't seem to get things done, and I would probably agree that he needlessly wasted lives, but again, I wasn't there. This is just based off of my reading. So my thoughts about the things in the book that I found interesting. I found it really interesting, Hood's opinion about his troops. He would write, they're the best troops ever. There'll never be another army like this. But he's really callous when he talks about how hundreds of them are dying on the breastworks of the enemy. It's like, yeah, they die. Maybe this is a defensive mechanism that generals have to develop, because otherwise they would be incapable of sending their troops into battle. Which is what was his name, Meade? That's the criticism people put on Meade, General Meade, during the Civil War. He was a Union general. He did also have a very curious view about entrenching. Before you did these set-piece battles where everybody lined up and they shot at each other from across an open field. Well, the Civil War is really a good indication of warfare to come in the modern age. So, for example, attacking civilians to destroy country capacity. Civil War, long trenches, the Civil War, reliance on mechanical transport. If you look at the battle lines in the Civil War, they basically follow shipping lines on rivers and railroad lines because railroads were new. But anyway, his view was that when you entrenched an army all the time, what happened is they lost confidence in themselves, had an expectation of always to be protective, and therefore they were not aggressive in their attack. And so he was advising, don't entrench your troops unless it's absolutely freaking necessary. Which in a modern war today, you just can't do that, because if you don't entrench your troops, what happens? Artillery comes in and whacks all of them. Machine guns come in, kill all of them. So I think he was missed that warfare changed, and you see that very clearly in his thinking about entrenchment. So I wouldn't recommend this if you're a military leader today. You know what? When you stop, entrench your damn troops, right? I also found some of Hood's stories about particular incidents very interesting, particularly about human behavior. For example, there was an event at night after a long road march. I think his corps was up on a bluff hillside, and a donkey got loose and started running up the hill, making all sorts of noise with the equipment he was carrying. Some troops woke up, startled, started shooting, freaked everybody else out, and the whole corps retreated off of the... Nobody was attacking them. They were just shocked and retreated. And that is an important lesson for military leaders. So there are some in this book, but I thought that was a really good snapshot of what was going on at the troop level. So, do I recommend this book? There we go. Advance and Retreat. Isn't that a great title? I wonder if he came up with that title or if somebody else did, the publisher, but that's a great title, Advance and Retreat. Do I recommend it? If you're a Civil War buff, most definitely. But you have to take Hood's facts with a grain of salt. Remember the context. He's writing a defensive treatise, and at some point in the book, you're going to go, oh, just stop going on about how Johnston sucks, and all these numbers that prove that you're right. But you know what? If you're a Civil War buff, those numbers are going to interest you. How many troops I had at this place, how many troops I had at this place, how long would it take me to move troops from point A to point B, and this is why I should have won, type of thing. You'll be very interested in that. Now, if you're a military leader, yeah, you can read it kind of as a cursory view, but I wouldn't take it as a manual on how to be a general for an army. There are some human lessons in there from the stories about how troops reacted to certain things, which might be valuable for you. And anytime you learn about the development and the history of warfare, it's probably a good thing if you're a military leader. If you're a general reader of history, well, in other words, if you're looking for something that will try to make you understand some of the social, economic, political reasons for the war and general movements, don't read this book. This is a memoir. There's no context at all in this book. So if you're going to read this book, you really do have to have had read a couple of books on the Civil War, generally speaking, or you'll get lost, because Hood does not provide any context at all. I enjoyed the book for what it was. I'm glad to have read it. I'm happy I had some context when I did go to read it. And it does make me want to go on, just like when I read Grant's memoirs and read Sherman's memoirs. I think Sherman, everybody talks about him, so he's kind of like a movie star general type of guy. And I'd really like to go read his memoirs. I actually think I have it on my bookshelf somewhere behind me. So, but in closing, I do have a couple announcements. And the first is that I'm moving, and I don't know, I'm going overseas, and I don't know how that's going to play into my being able to do my YouTube channel. So we're just going to have to wait and see. My hope is that the bandwidth and permissions for internet and stuff are all there to allow me to continue doing my talks on writing and on book reviews and other things that may or may not come up. So I just want to let you know that there may be a break here as I do this move, and then hopefully everything will work out when I get to my new place. And then my other announcement is that I'm currently running a giveaway for the 2-year anniversary of my novel, The Eclipsing of Cyrus C., Dryden Universe novel. So that's going to run through July 4th of 2017. You have to go to Goodreads to sign up. And I will post another video on that giveaways. And then last, I like reading history, but I would like to know other people's thoughts on General Hood. I mean, we have this huge prominent military base named Fort Hood in Texas. So this controversy, was he a good general? Was he not a good general? What was his faults and strengths? If you have thoughts on that, please put them below. I'm interested in hearing what other people think about it. I'm also curious why people might think that the Civil War is such an important time in American history and how it still impacts us today. I have my thoughts on that, but I'd like to hear what other people think as well. So with all that said, thanks for stopping by. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Like and share my videos. And as always, I will see you all next time.